Welcome to PreSales Unleashed. This is your podcast for sales engineering and B2B software sales. And my name is Tim, and as pre-sales experts with more than 25 years of experience, we help SaaS and IT companies unleash their pre-sales performance for higher win rates, delighted customers, and more fun in the role. And today I have a very special guest, Edward Kandel. He's the founder of Coform and Focal, and Edward has conducted over 300 discovery calls with SE teams around the world through his community, and in the process uncovered something many of us feel every day, but rarely articulate this clearly. Solution engineering is a black box. We can't prove our impact, our knowledge is trapped in silos, and the tools we use weren't built for us. From that insight, Edward didn't just build one of the largest global pre-sales communities, but is also now building a product designed to solve exactly these problems. We talk about why he went from investor to the solution space, which problems he keeps seeing across SE teams, and where the journey is heading as software moves toward consumption-based pricing and go live becomes more important than just the signature. And with that, please enjoy today's episode. I found your background quite interesting. The first time we talked, actually, I think one of the first sentences you said to me, "Hey, Tim, please keep in mind, I haven't worked in pre-sales for 10 years. I am not necessarily from a solutions team. That being said, you have now built an entire company around to serve solutions teams." So obviously for me, it was an interesting thing to understand. You've worked, I think, a lot at Founders Factory, and then your transition was founding a company around the solutions topic. So can you maybe share with us a little bit why you decided to go into that direction? What was your experience at Founders Factory that led to that?
Yeah, 100%. I think if you look at Nick and I, when we come at this from two sides. So Nick, my co-founder, was an SE at Paddle. He was doing pre-sales and delivery, mid-market up to enterprise. So he was in the coalface of doing this role, seeing how important it was, but man, how under-supported, underappreciated, overlooked, and like how important the impact of those things were on the company as well. So he came at it from that side. At Founders Factory, I was investing and working with founders building our enterprise fintechs. So pretty much every single one of them had this very important motion where with these bigger teams, if we are not scoping the right things, if the deals don't get scoped properly before they get signed or delivery goes wrong, those companies were not growing and raising. So I kind of came at it from the other side where I was like, okay, well, what is the impact of if you don't do pre-sales and delivery right? Nick came at it from the other side of I am in pre-sales and delivery. In addition to that, like I built a bunch of communities before that around problems that I really cared about. So previously had built communities around queer people in sport because that was an area that being a gay man in sport and that being not a place I could go. And so when Nick and I were really diving into the space and it became something that almost became all encompassing, it felt like the logical step of like, well, actually, surely the first way we should try and solve this is by bringing the best people together in spaces where they can go, hey, what is actually working? What are you actually doing to solve this? How can I improve this? And so that was the first step, and that's where Coform started. So that was our route into it.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I really love the way you just described your philosophy, bringing people together who care about the same problem. I mean, this is I think that this is where we share a lot of the philosophy. This is what we've been attempting here for the past couple of years in the DACH region specifically. So I love that you're doing this. Now, when I first checked out, hey, there's Ed, there's his co-founder, there's Coform, there's Focal. To be honest, I was a little bit confused around the namings and what it all means. So maybe you can sort for us a little bit, like what is Coform, what is Focal, and what's the whole thing with the names?
So yeah, I think it's easiest if we start with looking at like the goal we're working towards, right? Which is that we believe solutions and delivery are super important to software companies of today actually being successful. Right? If you don't sign the right deals, scope them in the right way, they don't go live. And your company doesn't realize that revenue and customers don't solve the problems they're trying to, right? And actually, we think that's going to get more important as AI is rolling out, where everyone's moving to outcome usage-based, so not going live becomes critical. And then the complexity of every deployment is getting more complex. So that's the kind of overall mission. But when we started, the thing we kept hearing from SEs in London is, well, it's a black box. I've got no idea what is actually good, what works for doing solutions. I've got no place to engage with my peers and get those advice. All the tools we use are built for other people. We can't prove our impact. And we're in these little silos repeating the same things over and over again, right? So we were looking at this and goes, okay, if we don't solve those things, solutions isn't going to be able to play this super pivotal role, which it should do as software is evolving. So the first thing we did, which is what we started in Jan 2024, is Coform. Coform has a very simple and very focused mission, is we create these super intimate spaces with really high quality people. We make sure like great solutioners from great companies, and all our meetups are focused around how can we get the maximum transfer of information between people on the stuff you can't find online. So for example, we were in New York 2 weeks ago and we were doing with Notion there, pre-sales to delivery handovers. We were diving into what are the incentive structures different people use? What are those templates? When do they get brought in? Next week in London, we're hosting with Snowflake, and we've got the head of Anthropic for EMEA for solutions, one of the leads at Snowflake, diving into like, actually, how will our roles change? Not the BS on LinkedIn, like actually, and what skills do we need to focus on? So that is Coform. If you engage with Coform, there is one thing we focus on: great people, information you can't get anywhere else. And that is that model. Last year, a lot of those leaders started going, there are problems we can't solve through crowdsourcing playbooks. There are some infrastructural problems. There are some tooling problems, data problems. I.e., when I go to advocate for headcount, I have to look on Salesforce and go, what deals were my SEs assigned to, right? But does assigned to a deal does not show the impact that we are driving, right? And there are a few others, like all our knowledge, all the herd knowledge, the gap between docs and reality that we live in is all in our heads and walks out the door. So a bunch of leaders in the community were like, hey, you guys, I think, are the best people to solve this. So with them, and we got some external funding in, invested in that to go full time. And I'll also actually build out Focal, which we believe is the best operating system for solution engineering teams, pre-sales teams. And that's been built with about 300 discovery calls within the community. All our early customers were within the community first. And that is our model, that Coform is the community where the best people come together to share what's working, what's not. And from that, we actually also then help build the solutions to some of our problems. And there are a lot of other things we have in the pipeline as well beyond Focal. So that hopefully that gives you a little good summary there.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. So Coform is the community. Focal is what you're building as a, so to say, as a product based on of the learnings that you drew out of the community. And to be honest, now that you say, hey, 2 weeks in London, the head of SE from Anthropic is joining you, I feel quite jealous. Maybe I should book a flight right now and join you.
So come over. I will save a spot for you, Tim, 100%.
That sounds quite exciting, being quite the Anthropic fan in the past few weeks and months.
We are fully team Anthropic at Coform. No, sorry to all the OpenAI SEs out there.
Yeah, fair enough. So appreciate you shedding some light on it. One question in regards to that, because I would like to address the terminology topic, because in the past it always used to be called like pre-sales, then we have solution engineering, we have solution consulting. You also talked a little bit about delivery, and you say specifically the wording that you're using is solutionings or solutions teams, right? What is the thought process behind it? I would like to get your view on it.
Oh, a world of pain has caused that thought process when you try and go, who are the people we should accept to our events? And then you have a list of 30 job titles, right? So, the catch-all term we use within the community is solutioners. And that's obviously a made-up word, but the idea is it is meant to encapsulate the workflows that people are doing from, as you say, pre-sales, scoping, demos, etc., to the delivery part of like either implementation support or actually that delivery work on site, the kind of more forward deployed engineer side. The reason why it was very intentional having a space with both together is because one, you see some teams where, for example, the Molly team, who are in the community, one of the Focal customers, they do pre-sales and delivery in one team. So it wouldn't make sense to exclude half of that. And the second reason why is both teams are intrinsically connected. You know, how good delivery is able to perform is very inextricably linked to what the pre-sales function or part of the process is doing, and vice versa. So that is why, as a space, it felt right to really focus on those two. And for example, we never have any AEs, salespeople, leaders who are not in the solution space. But yes, we have solutioners as a catch-all, and then our terms we use, at least our pre-sales and delivery, to kind of go pre-signature and post-signature, just as a catch-all.
Do you know that feeling? You are reviewing a deal that should have been yours. You have the better solution, you know it, your champion knows it, and yet somehow you still lose. The customer ghosts you, procurement drags everything out, and in the end you get, oh, we've decided to go with another vendor. And you're just sitting there thinking, what the hell just happened? And then there are those phases where you tell yourself, hey, let's get better here. You watch a YouTube video on discovery, maybe you read a book about pre-sales, you join a webinar. But then real life kicks back in. The next POC, the next demo, the next fire drill. And nothing really changes because you don't have a real framework, no system that makes you continuously better. And that's exactly where the Trusted Advisor Academy comes in. The Academy takes this massive topic, how do I become an SE who doesn't just support deals but actively wins them, and breaks it down into the right steps at every level. Not with a once-off workshop you've forgotten 3 days later, but with a 12-month system that is tailored to you, your level, and your role. People describe the Academy like this. Hey, I finally understand why some deals work and others don't. I know what to ask in discovery. I know how to build a champion. I know how to shape the technical win so that procurement can't torpedo my account executive anymore. So you learn how to build pain chains that uncover real business pain and not feature bingo that no C-level executive really cares about. You learn how to set up a mutual evaluation plans that keep the deal on your timeline. And it's the same with positioning. Everything gets broken down into concrete frameworks. You know how to position yourself as a trusted advisor and not a demo monkey. But let's put all of that aside for a second. The methodology, the frameworks, all super important. But in the end, results are what count. Over 250 solution engineers from companies like Salesforce, Adobe, Zscaler, and LucaNet are using the Academy. And the results speak for themselves. Higher win rates, shorter sales cycles, and SEs who finally have the impact they deserve. And here's the best part. The Trusted Advisor Academy isn't a workshop that leaves you on your own afterwards. Whether you are a junior SE or an SE director with 15 years of experience, the Academy knows exactly where you are and what you should be learning next. Live sessions multiple times a week, a community of the best SEs in the DACH region, and a leadership track for everyone managing SE teams. You're not getting a program that wraps up after 8 weeks. You're getting something that is systematically making you better over a period of 12 months and beyond. So if you're finally ready to be the SE who wins deals instead of just supporting them, head over to serockstars.com right now, check out what the Academy has to offer, and book yourself a free discovery call. See for yourself whether it's the right fit for you and your team. No excuses. Thanks for listening, and now back to the show. It's a very interesting decision. And I mean, if I can share an observation, I mean, we are obviously speaking to plenty of software and IT companies in Germany. And of course, you have sort of the vendors, the software vendors themselves, but then you also have a huge organization of partners in many cases. Like Microsoft has hundreds of partners in Germany. SAP has maybe even thousands of partners, at least in Europe, hundreds in Germany, and so on. And all of these partner organizations, which vary between 10 employees and sometimes 1,000 employees, so very broad spectrum there, they quite often do not have a dedicated, let's very consciously call it pre-sales role. They have solution consultants, and they are very often split between. They assist the account executives pre-sales, but when the deal then really comes, they're also involved in the implementation. So I can definitely see the synergy. And at the same time, I'm also wondering, as I'm seeing some companies, for Celonis is a great example, and I'm sure there's plenty of others, where they are trying to merge not necessarily solution engineering or pre-sales and post-sales delivery, but they're merging pre-sales and customer success. And they call this together value engineering, at least that's the term they are using. So are you also including sort of like the post-sales customer success role in your community? Or is that something where you say, hey, this is too different?
I think I love the term, because hey, Clay uses what go-to-market engineer as well to mean a solution. Anyway, the job titles, it's so frustrating. Everyone, let's just agree on something. But anyway, I think what we've said is if someone does what we would term as delivery and customer success, yes, very much want them. If someone is just doing that success after the go live, and again, of course, there is not a really clear line sometimes when that happens. Yeah. We just don't focus on that so much. And I think I think something we believe quite strongly is, really good communities are actually defined often in who they're not for, because then if it's very clear, then you're able to be much higher value for all the people who are there. So for us, we are aware for some people, hey, that feels exclusive, but actually we think it just enables us to be more impactful towards our goal of going, hey, what are the most important things in these two areas? And we're always up for collaborating, but that's kind of how we think about it.
Makes sense. And I think maybe the common denominator is then here maybe how technical is the job, right? Most customer success managers, at least I've met, they are not as technical as ACEs would be, but someone who does delivery is very technical, obviously. Sometimes obviously more technical than a traditional pre-sales person would be. So maybe that's sort of the common denominator there.
And
all right.
I think I was going to
say,
say, that's why we kind of like the term solutioner, because it has these undertones of, I am building with you this proposition of like how, first in the pre-sale side, it's like, how am I building the thing that solves your problems? And then in delivery, how are we deploying it? And so that's why we kind of like that so cold term, because it captures those key themes that are like so important in pre-sales and delivery, which maybe aren't there so much in success or account exec world.
Yeah. All right. And now you already started sharing some of the issues that you've observed, right? You talked about we want to improve our impact. You want to make sure what were the actual activities that contributed towards a successful sale, for example, as opposed to just being tagged on an opportunity. You shared the example of which we've come across many times. How do I justify additional headcount? Stuff like that. So let's go into that problem space. What were the top 5 problems that you observed where you say, hey, it makes sense to actually solve these?
Yeah. So if I think about them from a tooling outcome and then kind of community herd knowledge. So on the community side, a lot of things of like how I do good human processes in my team, very unclear. How do I set compensation? What are the ways of working we should be building with our team? How do we surface learnings? A lot of those, there isn't good resources online, especially when every team is a bit different. So with the community, that's where we really focus on, this is unclear. This makes teams less effective, less able to hit their win rate targets, revenue targets. So that's the goal of the community. On the focal side, it was really 3 things. Teams share they're often wasting time on bad fit deals. And this is because, AEs bring us in with minimal notes, if any. And linked to that, the knowledge of what makes a good deal and a bad deal, what our product can and can't do, what are the workarounds, what helped us win similar deals. That's all siloed in people's heads. Maybe there's a Notion or a Confluence, which has some bits of it, but it's often out of date. And so that means, one, that there are deals which we waste time on in pipeline, which actually we should be qualifying out earlier, or deals that we could be winning, but actually we don't because I am an SE on a team. Jessica had a deal 2 months ago that were very similar. They won with this, case study and the solution. I have no idea that's there, so I don't leverage it. So there's kind of the bad fit deals, the silos, and both of those come together that because none of that is being tracked in one place, because most SE teams in the community are across Salesforce, Gong, Slack, Notion, Calendar, maybe a Jira, that isn't being brought into one place where you can go, what is the impact we're actually driving? And so as a result, as you say, when you go look at why should we have another member of our team for the account execs, it's very easy. You go, here's their quota, here's the revenue they'll drive. Whereas for solutions, too often it becomes a cost center discussion of, we are busy and doing this many demos because this is what we can track, or this are the deals we're associated to. And it leads to discussions of, hey, why don't you guys just do more demos per person, et cetera. And so those are the kind of problem statements. And we really dived in. We looked at, hey, is there stuff we can recommend? We already recommend, for example, a bunch of RFP tools to community members, bunch of stuff we love out there. But there was nothing here for that like OS. And so that is what Focal is. Focal is that operating system for a team that ensures every deal they're working on is a good fit deal. And if it isn't a good fit deal, should we either be disqualifying it, or is there information we have from elsewhere to turn it into a good fit deal? That knowledge that's in everyone's heads gets captured and surfaced. So we cut ramp time. And then the final one is, because that's all in one place, for the first time, you can really start to prove the impact of this would be the impact on pipeline of having an extra team member. So it's really focused on how do we help teams hit those revenue targets, but also build that trust internally. We always have the answers. Everything we're working on is winnable and deliverable. And if you invest in us, this will be the outcome you get. So that's kind of how we think about the 2 problem areas.
Okay, got it. And now you made me curious, like who's the end user, so to say? Is it the individual contributor who's interfacing also your solution, or is it more a managerial tool, or is it in the end, depending on the use case, and it's actually both?
So we think about it in terms of times of the day where we want Focal to add value. So the short answer is both. So for a leader, where we see with teams like Remote and GoCardless who've onboarded and others, we want to be the most helpful place for every one-to-one and every forecast meeting, where rather than the hours of detective work they're doing, trying to find answers, they get the information exactly what they need, what deals are good, what deals are about to go wrong, what deals have scoping gaps in them, etc. What have we learned from other deals that influence this? So leaders use us for that. And ICs use us mainly around calls, before a call to go, hey, by the way, watch out, there are these risks. Here are the remaining scoping gaps on this deal for that deal specifically. But also here's some knowledge. This objection is likely to come up. What is a good answer from someone else in the team? And the idea is everything is delivered in the place where people work. So everyone's getting these Slack nudges, but also there's a UI they can go to, chat with, engage with, see it all in more detail. So the idea is it is that one place the team works, we're cutting out hours of admin and giving them far better intelligence to be able to be more effective to increase the impact they're having.
All right. Appreciate you sharing that. And I would like to double click on the impact topic. And I think we discussed this in one of our previous conversations, which wasn't recorded as this one. So let's maybe go there. I mean, what most SE leaders and organizations are doing is what I would call like SE attached revenue, right? And then they say, hey, we've had, 100 deals this quarter. Out of those 180 were SE attached. And now I can obviously do a sum of the ARR across all deals. And that is the SE attached revenue, which is our sort of contribution. Now, that being said, that model is very flawed because an opportunity where I joined for one demo call and showed 30 minutes of demo and then afterwards the deal closed is very different to an opportunity where I was executing 6 weeks of POC work, several discovery sessions, and maybe then a value engineering on top of which in terms of the hours and the contributions I've made. But in the end, both deals, even though they are so different, are both sort of SE attached revenue. So obviously not very meaningful way to track impact. And I would love to understand if I understand you correctly, this is one of the problems you're solving with Focal, and I would like to understand how do you actually do that?
Yeah, and fully agreed on SE attached. Like it is for most teams, the most and only accessible data point, as you say, but exactly agreed on the problems. Like you also get CROs we hear going, can you compare these two data sets? The deals you worked on, didn't work on. Often are you picking the higher quality deals to work on? So it's not a fair comparison.
Yeah.
And then also when people use it for headcount, you get the diminishing returns argument back, right? Well, if every new deal you work on, is that going to be the same quality as the deals you worked on before? Or am I going to get diminishing return on this investment? So fully agreed on the issues. But again, it comes back to the fact of because ultimately you need something which is connecting input to output. The only place SE teams can do that today is in Salesforce, and Salesforce doesn't capture what we're doing or our activities. So as you say, that makes sense. But I think the way we think about it philosophically after diving into this in every city, many meetups, is obviously one, you need to meet the executives where the executives are. What do they care about? Ultimately, it is revenue close, but also for usage-based teams, it is go live success and on time. Yes. So everything needs to be benchmarked to the impact we're doing on there. And then exactly as the example you gave, it's very different being attached to a deal versus I did one demo versus 20 engagements. I think the way we break it down is into level of activity and quality of activity. Because obviously, as you say, if I've just done one call where for 30 minutes I've answered questions, that's very different where if I've run multiple demos, engaged multiple stakeholders, built out material, shared them across. So I think there is a quantity point where and this is early, but helping teams benchmark on the deals where we had this higher level of engagement. This is the impact on ACV, time through stages and win rate. But also the second one is around the quality. And this is going into that point we were mentioning earlier around that herd knowledge. Because Focal is the operating system where these teams are living, and it is human in the loop capturing some of these insights around what are good objections, what are good demo talk tracks for this persona, how do we handle these use cases, what is a good case study. We're also able to help teams benchmark on that quality of the interaction and go, these were high quality. And so these higher quality interactions we had, actually this had this further impact on pipeline. And so leaders use that today, both for coaching their team, but also to go, hey, if we're investing in more and more senior people who are able to work more on deals, this is the further impact we have. And what we see is you get less of the pushbacks around diminishing returns. And can you compare these two different data sets? Because those issues don't exist anymore. So again, there's a philosophical difference. It's not perfect, but I think the first thing we've done is bring the inputs and outputs into one place, and then you can drive these values from it.
Yeah, super interesting. So, I mean, I think there's also a discussion to be had on correlation and causality, right? Let's park that for a second. But what I'm hearing is that next to SE attached revenue, which is trivial because this is the field on CRM which I can consolidate at the end of the quarter, you're saying, okay, let's also firstly include a quantitative measure by tracking what type of activities were actually done in a single opportunity. And then there were maybe not just one demo touch point, but there were 20, and that obviously means there was more work done. The second piece I find even more intriguing because, I mean, activity tracking is one thing and some organizations are doing that. But you're also saying we're not just doing sort of activity tracking quantitatively, but also qualitatively. If I understood you correctly, you said something like, hey, there's a specific persona and we are targeting maybe a specific part of our software portfolio. And with that persona, with that part of the portfolio, a good conversation looks like this. And then you can say, okay, well, how much did that conversation that happened adhere to the standard that we have defined as great for this persona with this sort of part of the module? And then all of a sudden you can have a qualitative measure on a conversation that was had, which then makes a statement around how much did that conversation drive a deal forward. Am I understanding you correctly?
Yeah, exactly. And the first thing around this area is more focusing on how can we better impact deals today. So what this looks like if you're a team onboarding to Focal is, in that Slack nudge before a call going, hey, this objection from this persona or this case study has worked similar to this persona with these similar requirements, etc. And then after the call, we're comparing that to what actually happened. Focal has this semantic understanding of what, for example, a requirement is versus an objection, and is able to update them with human in the loop input from the team as those happen. So we start to get an understanding because we again connect that to outcome of what are the things that resonate, not have more impact, how that changes when competitors change, our product changes. So the initial focus for us is the most important thing is like, how do we help you hit your revenue targets, scale your team faster as you ramp new people. But yes, the goal is then using that to help go, when we have more senior, faster ramped individuals, this is the impact they're having on higher qualitative conversations with customers. And this is the impact we're seeing that on outcomes. So yes, it is both a quantitative where we hate time tracking, we're fans of activity tracking. And then the second one is more the qualitative side of like, what is happening with those customers? Because again, that is where a lot of the value that solutions teams do, right? It is the value of like, hey, what is the thing that Tim really needs that, he needs to solve more than anything else? How do we align ourselves to that? So if you're not capturing that flow, you don't capture the value that a solutions team does.
Yeah. And then, I mean, if I'm thinking now further, coming back to the correlation versus causality, then I guess, well, in my mind, I'm thinking now, okay, if we can start tracking the quality of the engagements, we probably over time can detect patterns of which activities and which quality leads to closed won as opposed to closed lost. And then we start to have a causality loop as opposed to just a correlation. Is that where Focal is going with that?
Yeah, and in the short term, we'll be focused on conversion between stages because that's a faster lagging indicator than one loss, and of course how good your AE is also impacts the one loss. So I think initially more focusing on those conversion between stages.
Yeah.
But yes, and our bigger vision is actually as more and more AI companies move away from SaaS 1.0, you sign a contract, we're good to go. And it's actually speed to go live usage. And especially as everyone's features become commoditized, everyone's in a red ocean, unlike before. Actually, it will be that how do those correlate to the right companies actually going live on time and ramping usage? And I think that is like a mindset shift we need to go through because AI has fundamentally changed the unit economics of how software is bought and sold and implemented. That is going to be the board level discussion of the future rather than just like signature. So that's also why attach rate has an issue because I think that will become less and less valuable to the top board level discussion.
Yeah, the more all these software companies are moving towards consumption based, the less there will be ARR closed won, right? Because then it's
Exactly.
more about actually using and realizing the value than not. I'm still skeptical whether the entire software industry will move in that space, but certainly more and more are already going that direction, where it also makes sense. I mean, obviously AI companies being at the forefront with token cost and stuff like that. But we'll see where the rest goes. I'm not sure if, for example, an ERP provider at some point will really be only consumption-based pricing as opposed to,
I think 100%. I think you're right. There'll be a lot of people who aren't 100%. I am pretty sure nearly everyone will have hybrids pricing with overages or tokens. And so, as you say, it may not be 100% of our revenue comes from usage. Like, I don't know, a payments company today is a great example of that. But there will be this part where it is a still direct impact on the P&L of the company if we don't go live on time. Whereas today, Workday, at least 2 years ago, they sign a contract. If they don't go live for 8 months, who cares? Not directly affing anyone at Workday. Don't know anyone at Workday, but just as an example. sorry to all the SEs at Workday. We love you, but yes.
Yeah. I mean, there are plenty of also very publicly discussed projects in the ERP space where projects were initiated and then 2 years down the line were discontinued and stuff like that. I won't name names, but those examples exist, and typically it's not the problem of an individual who didn't do their job, but more of a structural, a systematic issue. So no blame given to anyone. I appreciate everything you've shared. Now, those were the main questions I had in my mind for today, but obviously I want to give you the opportunity if there's something like a message you want to convey to our audiences, to our listeners, something that is on your mind that I haven't asked you, which you would like to get off your chest. I mean, by all means, let me know.
I think it's a bit of a rallying call. Like, I think our functions, the center of mass and value in software is moving into our space. Like, if you look at everything before, it was always just like, hey, put a bunch of leads in the top of the funnel. Whatever kind of happens, they'll waterfall down, enough will sign, will be good. But I think that is like fundamentally changing. And so the questions of should we go after this? How do we go after this? And how do we get it live? Will be almost the most important questions, I think, for any company. In a few years, it will almost be crazy looking back at what we have been. So I think there's this opportunity for like solutions and delivery and pre-sales to like have that pivotal role in a company, which in a lot of payments companies, as an example, already does today. But I think it's also like we need to step up and take that. And again, we are partly held back by the fact that like a lot of our data doesn't exist today. But it is one, ensuring that we are advocating for ourselves to be those leaders, but also experimenting with what's coming up. Like, be experimenting with all the new tools. You need to be trying out Claude Cowork. You need to be going, what parts of my role are going to be automated? What, technical skills where I could write Python before, hey, this may not be so valuable because everyone can do it. But maybe actually it's the focus on like how I'm building trust with someone, value selling when everyone's got different features. So yeah, it's a bit of a rallying call of like, this is an amazing time to be in solutions. I think unfortunately we will see job losses, especially on the junior side. And I think you're already seeing that. So it is like a rallying call of like, let's take this opportunity, but it is not one where you can sit and let the opportunity come to you. Like, there is going to be a shift in the skills that solutions teams need. So it is both a really big opportunity, but there are also like just concerns I have, running a community of people, right, who we really value. So yeah, more than anything, it's a rallying call we do within Coform often of like, let's move towards this, but let's also not get left behind as individuals as well.
Yeah, I 100% feel that. I mean, this is obviously autobiographically speaking. I'm an engineer, but for the past 15 years, I've always strayed more and more to the sales side. So I've actually stopped coding and stuff like that almost after university. But the amount of coding, quote unquote coding, I've done in the past, let's say 2 to 3 months, is probably 10 times the amount I ever did in the whole of university. So, and that just speaks to the, let's say, democratization of building software and coding and those technical skills. And I fully share what you just said. I mean, as long as we are interfacing with customers and there is not an agent on the customer side, but there's a human being on the other side, skills like leading a meaningful conversation, asking the right type of questions, focusing on the outcome and the values, those will be the type of skills that I would also see will not go away as fast as maybe some of the technical skills.
And actually, it's like, I think there will be some SEs who aren't customer facing, but I think there will be almost like a context engineering role for SEs where they are actually managing maybe on mid-market SMB of like the role of that herd knowledge in their head, but actually maybe they aren't engaging with customers and their role is managing these agents. Then as you go higher up the stack, for at least a period, I think it will still be high trust. And actually where we see value accruing is less today. It's almost like, what are the, if I was to boil it down, what are the features that could help us win this sale? Obviously there's value selling, but as an engineering resource used to be finite, and now it feels like it's far more democratized. The ability for companies to have the same features or very similar features. So it's like, great, well, how will customers choose? Well, I've got 10 CRMs who all do exactly the same thing, or 10 outbound, how will I choose? And I think a lot of it will actually go to trust around deployment and go lives, because then the question moves to who do I believe will actually get this live for me? And so I think the role of how do we bring in delivery, how do we build trust in a post-trust age becomes more important. And again, this is why we all believe like there is this big opportunity for solutioners to go from being the unloved child of SaaS to being the center of how software is bought and sold. But again, there is this shift that is going to happen nonetheless as we get there.
If I can share one other observation, you make me chuckle because you're basically talking about feature parity, right? Most category, if you look at software categories and you look at the providers in such categories, they are approaching feature parity quicker than ever before. That was already the case before AI had the boom it had now, and now it's even accelerated, right? And in every category, new players are jumping out. Everyone is furnishing it with an AI label and now believing, okay, let's capture the category. But the truth is many more categories are becoming basically, become so comparable. That being said, if I'm looking now from a customer perspective, we are a young company. We only have 4 employees, but we purchase software, obviously. So we've undergone some evaluations. And also the way I'm looking at vendors now and how demanding we have become as customers when there's a certain feature missing. I'm almost expecting I'm logging a feature request with one of my vendors and I expect it to be ready next week because I vibe coded this in 5 minutes. What is taking you so long, right? So, there are so many changes happening, which are, as you say, have advantages, but also disadvantages. Maybe there will be some challenges to the role going forward, and maybe there will be some consolidation. We will see what the future brings. In any case, I just wanted to add that one because I feel like on the customer side, expectations are also shifting due to everything that's happening in the software building industry.
And the other interesting question I've had with some community members is, will the AE and SE role merge in maybe some spaces where it's less technical? And there's an interesting question where it feels like, especially for less technical or customizable products, people who traditionally didn't have the knowledge to be able to solution or answer questions will have that knowledge enabled to them. But then the question is has that been the role of the solution engineer to answer questions? Or actually, is it important to have 2 different personas who are looking at things from different perspectives?
Yes.
One, we are building trust because this person goes, well, I know you're trying to push this through, but I know you're trying to make sure that I actually have something that works. But also internally to go, we all know A's who've been late quarter being like, yeah, it's a good deal. Let's push it through. And the SE is there to go, I don't know about that. And so actually, do you need 2 personas? Is that 2 agents who are set up in different ways? But it's just like when you break it down to like a incentive structure, like what will change or what not is really interesting. And obviously we will see, but it is something we're thinking about of like what will merge, what will consolidate, why, what is driving that. And anyway, lots of interesting discussions we have within Coform on that.
Yeah. And I see where you're coming from. I would probably, maybe bold, but I would argue there's probably not a lot of SEs out there who said one of their favorite parts of the job was answering AE questions on Slack all day. So probably most of them are quite happy to get rid of that and have rather some agent handle those going forward. But I see what you mean in saying, okay, maybe it was not necessarily the technical expertise that made the AE and SE role so successful, but it's actually because there are 2 roles and the one is viewed a bit different than the other. Maybe that contributed to the success of that role model. So not to get too philosophical, but I see where you're coming from, and that's an interesting aspect. And I guess future will tell. Look, Edward, looking at time, I think we're almost at the end. So I just want to express my gratitude that you took the time to join us here today. I loved the discussion, very interesting thoughts, and I'm also, a bit early days still, but We have been discussing how we can collaborate maybe going forward, and I would very much love to continue the discussion, keep an open forum here, and look what we can do together. You know that we are big on community building too. We've attempted to do so in our little German-speaking DACH market. And if there's further synergies we can explore together, I'm very happy to have that conversation with you.
Yeah, 100% big fans of what you're all doing. Like, I think we believe like rising tide helps all boats. We're very, as a community, we want to work with other people who like share our morals and like what we care about. So definitely align. I'm looking forward to what we'll announce to people on that. In terms of Coform, we run monthly in New York, Berlin, London, Amsterdam. Some stuff we'll definitely be collaborating with you on in the future. So there's an invite-only meetups you can apply through our website, and we'll add you to the waiting list for each city. And then mainly for existing community members, we do one monthly for leaders across our cities. And the other things to look out for from a Coform side is we have this idea of method. And this is how do we open source what's working across teams on both sides of the Atlantic. The first thing we did was this compensation report of 200 teams within the community. There will be more coming there. We open source. And then, hey, if any of the problems that you have are the same as members of our community around, bad fit deals, all our knowledge is siloed, we can't prove our impact as a leader, and while always reactively putting out fires, feel free to drop me a note and would love to take you through and get your feedback on Focal as well.
Wonderful. Link to your profile are in the show notes, so that should make it a bit easier. This was PreSales Unleashed, your podcast for sales engineering and B2B software sales. If you enjoyed this episode and picked up maybe some valuable insights, subscribe to the show. If you have questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, just reach out to us. We appreciate every message on LinkedIn and are happy to reply to you. You can find the links to our profiles and Edward's profile in the show notes. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next time.